Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Let's talk about a little bit of metaphysical movieing. The movie Gemini Man is the movie specifically that I'm talking about. So many intuitive nudges. I heard about this movie maybe a year and a half ago or so from a reader that I don't listen to very often, but when she drops a little knowledge on that, she mentions a movie, a book, an article, a video, something, it's usually relevant. 9 times out of 10, it's usually quite relevant, and it's usually not relevant right away. They're generally things that I go and I download it, and then I remember it later. As was the case with Gemini Man. I'd never heard of this movie, but maybe a year or two ago, this woman mentioned it, and I put it in my downloads and went on about my merry way. And maybe 3 or 4 months after that, I had something that was spooling around in my mind of, I'm trying to understand the psyche and trying to understand the development psychologically of how those steps were made. How did this person come to that decision? How did they reach that particular point of understanding themselves that way, or the situation? I was really trying to unravel, not because I wanted to control or manipulate or change the outcome or anything of somebody else's story, just literally forensically looking at it and going, how is it that that person arrived there? I wonder what it was. Of what I do know, it doesn't make sense. So there must be other information that I do not know. And that's always true, is that there's always going to be information I do not know, even about the people I think I know. It's just the way that is, We don't know things about ourselves even, so how can anybody else know? So anyway, this movie, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it and you're interested, you won't want to watch this movie or watch this video, because I'm not holding back anything. So the deal is that Henry Brogan is Will Smith, and Will Smith, I have a mom crush on Will Smith. It's official. Just his personas that he plays. I don't know a thing about him in person, and I don't have a crush on the man, just the work that he does. I really like it. And he's cool. He's cute, He plays good characters. So anyway, with Gemini Man, we see him, he's a hired assassin, essentially. He's a mercenary. He works for what would be the equivalent of the CIA, dark ops, black ops, where we just kind of quietly do away with the bad guy, but we wear the good guy hat, and we're the good people. We just take care of the bad people. Yeah, no comment on that. That's got all kind of metaphysical that we could stay there for at least a day, and let's not. But he works for the good guys. And he's been recruited in the past by somebody who he really didn't get along with well. He was being groomed for a privatized military group, sort of like the Wagner Group, after his time in the Marine Corps, and he said, no thanks, I'm not about what you're about. I'm going to go work for the good guys. And he doesn't realize that the good guys and that mercenary group are kind of working together. They're not kind of working together, they're still working together, but he's left out of the loop. And you see the opening scene for the movie is him getting ready to AMF a dude on a train, a moving train. And there's a little girl in the way, and so his spotter says, hold up, wait, the coast isn't clear just yet. And so it kind of jars him a little bit. He still hits his target and is successful. However, he retires immediately, and he tells his immediate boss, Dell, he says, 72 kills, Dell. That shit starts to mess with you a little bit. Deep down, it's like my soul was hurt. I just want some peace. And man, when I heard that, I knew why the person that mentioned it in the tarot or oracle, whatever it was, reading 3 or 4 or 6 months before I watched the movie, I went, oh, I know why she said that, because this is so relevant right now. And it really was, because it immediately turned in for me to a metaphysical interpretation, a metaphor that Gemini Man is a perfect illustration of the struggle of good and evil, or the struggle of good and ego. And I talk about ego a lot because the ego can be our worst nightmare, and it is our worst nightmare when it is our nightmare. It is our worst one, and it will portray itself through a lot of interactions with other people. However, we're constantly mirroring back to other people what they are presenting to us if we're in a very unhealed spot. So it really represented for me a lot of ego points and a lot lot of ego challenges, and really personified for me, you know, some of those behaviors that I was kind of mystified with. I wonder what the psychology is of how that person tracked from there to there to there to there. What was their line of thinking that took them there? Because I'm just that kind of a nerd. I'm curious, you know, if I can back engineer, then I can better understand how did we get here. And when it's necessary to do that, I do that. And when it's not, you know, I'm out. I don't need to, you know, deconstruct anybody's psyche in order to move on with my life. However, sometimes moving on with my life helped me to deconstruct my own spots of how did I get there, as well as the spots of other people and the interplay that we've had, plus just casually observing interactions out in the world, you know, in the natural environment. Sometimes it's a really great thing to notice that stuff. But basically what it was for me was that Gemini Man, the guy who went on to make his mercenary group, the Gemini Project, he's really into cloning. He's not telling anybody he's into cloning, and he's certainly not announcing that he wants to, you know, clone human beings, and that, oops, you know, I kind of already did, and I've been grooming him and growing him. Junior is his name. He doesn't even get his own name. He's just called Junior. And you can guess, yep, that is Henry Brogan's Junior. That is presumably his identical twin, and I mean like identical, as in same desires, same thought process, same everything, which is not realistic. The movie's not realistic from that standpoint, that we would clone another human being and have all the same characteristics, likes and dislikes and that kind of thing. So just think of it as the raw material of clone means exact replica of, you know, all inclusive. And so Old Henry and Junior end up fighting each other. Now, mind you, this is at the behest of a man that tried to groom Henry. Henry was the best shooter in the outfit. He was the best killer there was, and he could make even more bank if he wasn't working for, you know, the government, you know, or come work for us in our private company. But Henry just couldn't hang with it. He's like, yeah, no, you know, whatever you got going, I really didn't like the grooming process that you and I went through, sir, you know, where you half drowned me. You know, I didn't like that, so I got to get away from you. And he doesn't realize that last hit that he took, the one that he stepped down and said, yeah, my soul, yeah, I got to have some peace, because that kind of hurt a little bit. Hit different. That one was actually an innocent man that was in on understanding what this guy was about, that we're cloning people, we're cloning live human beings. This isn't Dolly the sheep, this is Henry. And Henry Jr., except he wasn't even Henry Jr., he was just Junior, poor guy. And so what ends up happening, if you translate that information from being just a you know, cool movie, a nice way to spend a couple hours, you know, and make your brain think a little bit, dive a little bit deeper and understand the metaphysics of it and the ego challenge. There is a part in this movie where, I mean, I had to stop it the first time I watched it. I was like, oh my God, you know, I just can't. I can't. And, you know, when it comes up on the TV, like when I have it on my TV, like I have to fast forward because it's pretty intense. His Junior, he already knows all the moves that he's going to make. It's such a play. I mean, if it couldn't be more fantastically aligned with the ego struggle, that they both knew what the other was going to do before they did it, and yet one was constantly kind of outsmarting the other. So they were teaching one another. They were teaching one another exponentially. It's just they were teaching one another how to kill the other one. I mean, it was just like, oh, if we could be moving this in a completely different direction, that one of us doesn't have to, you know, die, that would be really great. But neither one of them understood that, yeah, that's my clone, and oh, that's my clone donor right there. They didn't know that because the monkey in the middle was managing both from afar for Henry, who's in DIA and trying to retire, and he doesn't know that, yeah, that guy that you tried to get away from, he's totally been running things, and he runs the people that run you. And now they're after you. And not only do they not want you, they're going to let your junior version, your clone, come and get you and kill you. I mean, it's pretty intense. But when it got to this scene, sorry, I'll wrap around again, 9:19, when we get to this scene, Junior is on a motorcycle, and he is absolutely, this is after hounding Henry for, you know, however long. Lots of time in a movie, you know, lots of time devoted to those action scenes. But they are intense, and he just does not let up. He doesn't let up. And Henry's on the ground. Presumably, he's vulnerable, chest up, you know, belly up. He's on the ground, and the kid spins the motorcycle around and is just coming for him. And he lifts up, he goes up on top of the car and is going to come down and just like, completely murder him. I mean, he has no idea who he is. He does admit later to Daddy, clone Daddy, that yeah, there was something really strangely familiar about that face. He looked like, kind of an older version of me. What is that? Who is he? He's like, watching a nightmare or something, or a dream unfold. I don't like that. Oh, just lean into your fear, son. Well, he did. He leaned right into it and tried to kill Henry. But what came to me in all of that was, isn't that the perfect illustration of what it is when we're in a battle with our own ego? We don't even know that we're in that battle, but we separate out so far that we become like a super soldier that has no feelings. That's what this guy was going for, the Gemini leader. He was going for soldiers that had no feeling and no pain, that they wouldn't experience any kind of regret, remorse, conscience, stuff like that, that we can basically be a money machine and be, taking care of the bad guy as determined by a mercenary group, not the government of any kind, which already, that's sketchy, but then you put it into the hands of, rogue element the whole way, then we at least have clones, and, nobody has to be sad that a soldier is killed, because they're just kind of just a bag of meat and neurons, but no real feelings and no conscience, and they don't have that, wow, I sure wish I could find peace in my heart, they don't have those problems. Isn't this a great idea? Does everybody want to jump on board? Super creepy, but that's kind of how it turns, though, whenever we're real rooted in our ego, or we see someone else that's very rooted in their ego, and we think, how could they possibly not know how much that hurts? I mean, how could you be so doggedly pursuing someone and trying to murder them, and just run them over with your motorcycle? I mean, he was just intense. Creeped me the boot right out the first time I saw it. I'm like, that's a lot of intense. I hate you, and I've got to murder you now, especially because it was coming at the behest of somebody else who co-opted this young man's juices, made him, and literally cloned him, called him Junior, didn't even give him his own name, and then sent him to his parent donor, his big brother, his identical brother. I don't even know what you would call that, because it wouldn't be his father exactly. His twin, 25 years later. It's super creepy, like super ultra hella creepy. But imagine that at the behest of something else, the ego is running our program so hard that we are doing terrible things. We're saying, doing, and being, and seeing, and believing, and conceiving all of these really terrible things, like, what's the next best way that I can murder this man? What's the next best way that I can trick him out into the open, that I can get him, that I can do my job? At the behest of somebody else that's got no investment in it whatsoever, other than that you're just a mongrel that I saved, gave you life until you don't have it anymore. Ain't you lucky? Want some cereal, Junior? Yeah, and a helping, heaping handful of clarity, please. And it wasn't until they reached out to him and started talking to him, and the integration of the ego, if you will, came into being, that they were able to talk to Junior and say, hey, let's put some logic on this. Let's put some feeling on this. Let's put some, structure on this. Do you ever wonder about XYZ? And egos don't really wonder about a whole lot of esoteric or, inner stuff. They worry about a lot of exoteric, a lot of things that are out here, and how can I strategize to manipulate the situation better? How can I, strategize so that I come out on top, I win, I got more money, I'm in a position of power. How do I do that? The ego is incredibly introspective, if you will, or studied up on things like that. However, the ego doesn't really go into self-reflection or anything, because there really isn't any self to an ego. The ego is really just a hologram. It's not a for realsy. And Junior, unfortunately, in this particular movie, he was quite a human being. He was quite a very live human being, but he was being run as if he was Henry Brogan's own ego. Like, everything the dude did, he had to learn how to outwit his own ego, how to outsmart him, how to work with him, how to put firm boundaries down with him of, don't make me kill you. Please don't make me kill you, because I will, but I don't want to. I'd like to help you. I'd like to help us. I'd like for you to know that you've been used. You've been cloned like you were just a piece of meat. You are a piece of me. Is that fair for either one of us to work for this man and to fulfill 1444, fulfill the objectives of a terrible mission where it's just simpler that we can create more war and we can do it cheaper, and we also don't have the heartbreak, you know? I mean, it's just so simple, right? And yet, I'm sure that there are plenty of people who watched that movie, got up out of the theater or out of their living room or whatever, and never even gave it another thought. But for me, it was very thought-provoking, and it took a lot of time to kind of work through that whole thing of what is it whenever we are being run, our egos being really challenged heavily, especially when it's the behest of other people who are happy to, you know, stir the pot a little bit. Let's get you going, you know, wave that red flag for the bull to go charging, just charge that direction. Yeah, it's over that way. It can happen like that. It can happen with our own, you know, triggering, that we're that deflated in our self-identity and our self-esteem that we don't understand that you're not junior. You know, even if you're a junior somebody, you're still a senior everything that you are. There's nobody else like you. Even an identical twin, you know, in real places. In reality, even identical twins are not identically the same. And the ego can look a whole lot like we do. It can behave a whole lot like we do. However, it is not the identity of who and what we are. It is merely a clone. It's the clone that somebody else built. A Clay Verris with Gemini Project built it. And if Clay Verris with Gemini Project got some nasty ideas in mind, then our ego can have a lot of very nasty and ugly programming as well. And so the best part of this movie, though, was the integration of those relationships where the woman that was involved, bother to get into the whole story, but the woman that was involved, she helped to facilitate by having enough faith and trust in Henry Brogan, the actual Henry, having enough trust and faith in him that, okay, I'm going to work with him because I don't want to see him die, and I don't want to see this boy die either, who's his brother's son. I don't know what he is, you know, lab rat. I don't want to see him killed or harmed or, you know, manipulated and controlled any longer. So how can we do this? I'm going to put myself on the line, and I'll be working on Henry's behalf and Junior's behalf. I'll be working as a kind of mediator between them so that we can begin this dialogue. Now, in an action film, you know, we're not after, you know, negotiation and all that stuff. We're after the action, and we got a whole lot of it. However, I was very happy to see that in the end, Henry acts very honorably and nobly and says, you know, leave with your dignity intact. Just leave, you know, and walk away while you still have the opportunity to have those things that are important to you, that you will find some other time and some other space in your world where you will feel at peace somewhere else besides when you're lying on your belly getting ready to pull the trigger, which is what both of them said. That's the only time I ever feel peace, is when I'm lying on my belly getting ready to pull the trigger and take somebody out. And Henry realizes and says to Junior as well that you want to be known for more than that, don't you? You want to have more than that, don't you? And he said, what else is there? And he said, how about being a good father? How about being a part of a family? How about being a good friend? You know, how about being in love? How about those things? And those are all things that the ego doesn't do. The ego doesn't love. It doesn't have the capacity. Humans do, 1818. Humans do, and we come equipped with the feelings. It's just that when we get too cloned out, you know, in our ego, or we get too farmed out by, you know, other people's opinions of what we should be doing and all of that, and our ego gets too challenged, if our self-esteem and our real ability to hold ourselves in a respectable light and in integrity in our own thought, it can be easily manipulated. And, you know, have a bowl of cereal, Junior, and go kill that guy, like I said, okay? I mean, it turns into quite the cult classic. So anyhow, I hope that that has been helpful for you and that's made some sense to you. If you haven't seen it, it's a decent movie. It's a good movie. It has a lot of metaphysical and metaphorical meanings for me that I glean every time. And, you know, it can be challenging to watch some of those very, I mean, deeply intense, I hate you, and I don't even know you, but I just know I hate you and I have to kill you. That's really how it is with our ego, that we will, 1919, we end up doing some of the most self-destructive things that are really screaming loudly inside of ourselves, I hate you. You know, especially when we're putting it out here too, we're letting people know when we're out here with our hateful, horrible behavior that we really hate us first. Because if we didn't hate us, we wouldn't be in a war with ourselves that we feel like warring with everyone else. You know, if we were really truly at peace with ourselves, then we'd be at peace with the rest of the world, because there is no reason to create war if we truly felt at peace and everything was well in our world. And even when we have to fight for something or we have to set a boundary, we don't need to clone somebody who's going to be our absolute slave soldier and zero feelings and zero emotions, zero conscience and zero regret. You know, the ego can go there in a second. It can go there very easily. And yet at some point, we have to reach the idea that, oh, you know, or we do. Not everybody, you know, before they die. I've seen people die that I'm just not gonna give it up. No, okay, all right then, blessed on your way then, whatever. You know, it's not my job. However, I have definitely seen other people that didn't wait, that they were just crashed and right down to the humble point of, oh yeah, and I've been there myself. So anyhow, I hope, as I said, that this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you enjoy your day, whatever part of the day you're in, and get within your skin, because you're divine. It really is totally fine, and it can help you find the Gemini man inside you. Get rid of that clone, that little bugaboo that somebody else built inside of you or that you built yourself. You deserve to be the only one of you that there is, because you are the only one of you that you are. So go sparkle and be delightful. And yeah, even if you are a Gemini, you be the two most beautiful parts of you that you can possibly be, because there is nobody else, baby, that can fill those shoes, not a one person. So enjoy it, take care of yourselves, and be well. And I will talk to you again, my friends. Bye-bye.